Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Council's Thursday, May 13th session. We'll begin today with the third video in our series, Elevating Asian American and Pacific Islander Voices.
Came to the United States, immigrated to the United States back in 1973. After I got married, moved to Montgomery County, living here. I've been doing real estate for about 26, 27 years. This opportunity came, and we opened up 2.5 years ago.
My AAPI culture is Taiwanese American. I was born in the States. However, my grandparents emigrated from China to Taiwan, which is where my dad and his siblings were born and raised. So I was brought up with the Taiwanese culture that my dad was brought up with, as well as the Taiwanese American culture that is present in Rockville.
I was born here in America. Korean parents that immigrated over here in the 60s and grew up basically in Maryland, in Montgomery County. It really shaped me for who I am today. Of course, number one, my parents and my brothers, and of course the friends that I developed here, and specifically through playing football.
My favorite part of Montgomery County is the city of Rockville. You know, it's just been wonderful with the people here. People is the best part about this.
The best part about living and working in Montgomery County would probably have to be the incredible offerings and just ease of access to arts and culture opportunities, many of which tend to be community specific, which is great.
The favorite thing about Montgomery County is, you know, it's the diversity of our county. It is kind of the melting pot of the world, and it continues to grow in that fashion. And having gone to Montgomery County Public Schools, having the privilege of going here, it was a great educational experience. And I've met so many incredible people, not only through school and growing up, but also through working here also as well. Amazing people in Montgomery County. So I'm very blessed to have this and fortunate to have this opportunity to be here.
I see Montgomery County as being like the melting pot with, you know, all walks of life, not just Asians, with every other, you know, culture. You know, we're just AAPI, we're just part of the big melting pot in the Montgomery County, and you know, to flourish and, you know, to make this a better place to live.
The AAPI community is a community that is very intent on preserving its culture and passing that culture on to the next generation.
We're really not much different than anyone else, but we're also have our uniqueness about us, and I think that's what makes every single one of us special.
We are one Montgomery.
Terrific. Thank you so much. That was great. Thanks to our outstanding communication team for all of these remarkable videos this week and for all of the speakers that were featured. I know it makes us, fills us all with pride about our wonderful county. Now we're going to take up the consent calendar. Is there a motion to move the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second. Rice moves and Councilmember Novato seconds. All those in favor of the consent calendar, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. Excellent. Now we're going to begin a work session on the fire and rescue services. We have a committee recommendation from the Public Safety Committee. Chairman Katz.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I have to begin by saying that there is a great amount of pride in the videos that we're seeing, and it truly does make you smile. I mean, it makes you proud of Montgomery County in so many ways. Thank you. First off, I wanted to thank Susan Farag, who put together wonderful packets. And I want to thank the other members of the Public Safety Committee. You, Mr. President, and the Vice President are both on the Public Safety Committee. And we have gone through the various line items. And I'm going to ask Ms. Farag to go through the fire and rescue service. There was one addition at the end. So I wanted or clarification at the end. So if she could please explain all of that.
I just want to make sure you guys can hear me okay, because I've been having some technical trouble this morning.
We can hear you, and
okay,
I just want to point out that Chief Goldstein is here as well. Thank you.
The Public Safety Committee reviewed both the operating and the capital improvement program amendments a week or so ago, and the CIP changes start on page 8 of the packet. But I'm going to just very briefly walk through a couple of the big changes in the operating budget. This the CE recommended budget represents a 3.4% increase over last year's approved budget. The Public Safety Committee recommended 3-0 to approve most of this budget, but they did make 2 significant changes. One of them deals with funding 5 full-time equivalent positions for a new paramedic chase car. That cost originally came over at $641,000. Putting 5 full-time people on there increases the cost by about $191,000, but it'll actually be a cost savings as we move into the out years. They also added $155,000 to the operating budget to support Bethesda Chevy Chase Rescue Squad's request for some in-kind services and products, reimbursement products, that the department provides to all other LFRDs. So they're not asking for anything above what other LFRDs get historically. BCCRS has done a very, very robust fundraising campaign and has not relied on the county for funding for most of their services. But however, as is typical in most cases, providing those services has gotten much more expensive. So, and the committee did recommend approval of $155,000 for that. Just briefly, what the committee discussed, as usual, they dealt with some structural overtime deficiencies, which basically come from the fact that they are understaffed. They don't have sufficient staffing to meet to meet service without overtime. Of course, they need to have some overtime, but they're using too much at this point. They need additional positions in order to reduce that overtime, and they also have to budget overtime more realistically. And I did point out the steps that both the county executive and the council have taken over the past couple of years to remediate this problem. The county executive has added 20 new firefighting positions, and this year there's added 10 new paramedic training positions. Those positions help address backfill overtime that's used when firefighters attend paramedic training. The reason for adding the 5 FTEs to the paramedic chase cars, 2 new enhanced EMS services came across the street. One was a day work ambulance and one was the paramedic chase car. Both of those, however, in light of the fact that they do have a structural overtime issue, they were fully staffed with backfill overtime. They did not have FTEs attached to them. And while the day work ambulance is a more flexible unit and it kind of makes sense to use overtime until they can figure out exactly where to deploy this, what hours, that type of thing, the paramedic chase car is a chase car and that needed positions, and that's why the committee recommended 3-0 adding that. Just briefly on the CIP items starting on page 8, most of those are reductions in projects that were due to delay or changes in the scope of the project. The White Flint Fire Station is a $3.1 million increase, and that's due to schematic design and cost escalation. They've also delayed construction on that starting in late FY23. The department also is doing an audit. If you'll remember, the county executive submitted the racial equity audits last year for both the police department and the fire department, and money for community engagement services. That was a total of $550,000. The Joint GO and Public Safety Committee determined, since there was no finalized scope of work for the fire department, that they wouldn't fund that $200,000, and the council approved that reduction, and they bring it back in FY22, and that's what the county executive has done. They've actually divided this audit up into 2 different pieces. One is going to look at the racial equity and diversity issues within the department, but the other one is going to look at operations and funding, and staffing levels, and the deployment of services. So the fact that they're splitting those will allow them to get subject matter experts in each. And the Public Safety Committee will follow up on those audit findings once they become available.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Farag. And as always, you do a wonderful job on this and all the other topics as well. And of course, we are concerned about the additional staffing, and we need to work through that over time as well. Chief, did you have anything else to add?
No, thank you. Yes, sorry. Thank yourself, President Hucker, Vice President Abernaz, and yourself for the discussion we had during the committee activities and the work collectively with OMB and council staff as we've reacted to the questions and then provide this updated packet for today. The men and women of the department are there answering the nearly 300 calls a day and appreciate the support of both the executive and legislative branches. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. To turn it back over to you, Mr. President.
Let me call on the Council Vice President.
Thank you. It was a very robust and productive discussion. I want to thank you, Chief Goldstein, and all of your colleagues for continuing to do outstanding work in our community. I just wanted to highlight for my colleagues, it's baked into the recommended budget, but it was something I was particularly excited about. And it's not even a big line item, but as one of many examples of innovation that Fire and Rescue is demonstrating, they piloted a program last year involving telehealth, and so that they would redirect some cases from emergency rooms to urgent care facilities rather than emergency rooms, and work collaboratively. That kind of approach is not just innovative, but will improve and directly connect to better overall public health. And so I just wanted to commend Chief Goldstein for that as one of many examples of the department being very forward-thinking and working collaboratively with other corresponding departments and agencies to expand their reach and better ensure public safety for our entire community. So thank you for continuing that, Chief Goldstein, and look forward to expanding that in the future. I'll lastly add that also has significant implications for our multicultural communities that speak many different languages and will further help with response times as well. So thank you for that, and thank you for all your continued dedication.
That is a terrific program. Councilmember Friedson.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to quickly thank the Public Safety Committee. Thank you, Chief Goldstein. Thank you, Ms. Farag, for all of your efforts. I think this is a really well thought out budget recommendation, but in particular, the BCC Rescue Squad, the equipment and maintenance needs, making sure that they're treated equitably as the other volunteer fire departments are, and bringing them fully into the fire rescue service like every other organization. This has been a particularly tough year for our volunteers, given everything that we all have been facing. They also have been putting themselves into danger, and the organizations have been challenged with their fundraising and with their additional revenues that they generally are able to generate by having activities at their squads and so forth. So this has been a long-standing issue that now looks to be resolved with this recommendation, which I am very grateful. The community is very grateful, and certainly the rescue squad is very grateful. But it's particularly at an important time given the additional strains that the last year during this pandemic has presented. So I just wanted to offer my appreciation to the committee for its work for this recommendation. Thank the chief for his ongoing support of the rescue squad, and thank everybody for their work. Look forward to supporting this.
Okay, anyone else?
If I could, Mr. President, first off, I too want to thank all of the firefighters, career and volunteers as well. And it's my understanding that Chief Goldstein has something that he would like to add to the conversation.
So, Vice President Albornoz, thank you for your transmittal of that information that we talked about in the committee to the full council. Absolutely. During prior to the pandemic, we had started our alternative destination urgent care pilot as the state of Maryland had expanded those protocols, and that was in place just before the pandemic. And then on January 1st of this year, 2021, as we implemented components of the Center for Medicare Studies ET3, Emergency Treatment, Triage, and Transport program that we were accepted in, we kicked off that telehealth. So we expanded our alternative destination options with more facilities and more participants in the community. Telehealth is available 24 hours a day, as Susan has talked to the committee, and we've talked to members before. With our tablets and phones in the apparatus, we now have a doctor's group available to us 24 hours a day. When the patient is clinically appropriate for and wishing to, we can contact them, create a secure video session with that doctor and the patient. That doctor he or she may be able to prescribe medications right there, be able to engage with non-transport required medical care. We as well have the option to take those folks, if they're willing, to these urgent care facilities. There's a little over 40 of those within the county that have a great level of capacity and enable the patient to get the right care at the right time from the right facilities. And it does absolutely, as our HHS partners and from the public health arena are aware, lessen some of the burden into our 6 main hospitals and 6 main emergency rooms. That is another part of, with the 2 remaining parts of mobile integrated health, which is our super users and our frequent requirements. That's a partnership with HHS that is now fully staffed, and once the getting fully loaded, we'll be out there aiming to keep those people healthier at home, in control of their health and their living conditions, and less reliant upon the 911 safety net. And my team is on the very edge of the cusp of working to apply for a grant to kick off nurse practitioner at the 911 center. We've talked about that before, as that is the first part of alternative medicine for 911, is having an advanced provider there who can do the deferral of the 911 dispatch. So a lot of great work, a lot of folks within fire rescue, county government working on that. So thank you, Vice President Albornoz, for mentioning that and making that segue.
Thank you.
Well,
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for elaborating, Chief. That is a really cool program, and thanks to you for all your hard work, and Susan for this terrific packet and all her great work year round. I like this budget quite a bit because it has a number of things that we were talking about under Public Safety Chair Elrich that we're going to get addressed, and I'm grateful that they're in there, including the new FTEs and the chase car, and more support for the volunteers. All our staff went above and beyond countywide during this pandemic under unbelievably difficult circumstances, but no one more than our fire and rescue, volunteer and professional fire and rescue staff. And it seems very long ago that, I think it's important to remember they were doing this on the front lines, putting themselves at risk when there wasn't a vaccine and when we couldn't procure enough PPE, and they were still responding to calls and to take sick people to hospitals. Those were really dire times, and few people were more on the front lines and more risk than they are, and they're used to it. But we're really grateful for all their hard work and dedication and sacrifice this year. So with that, we have a committee recommendation. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Chairman, on to the police budget.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next is item 32, the police budget. And of course, as we know, that we had robust discussions during that time as well with Ms. Farag, and I'm going to turn to her to please go through this packet as well, please.
Thanks. As the committee knows, when you discussed this last week, you didn't recommend any changes to the county executive's recommended FY22 budget, but there was a lot of conversation. I'm going to go over some of the highlights of that. Overall, this represents the county executive's recommended budget is a 0.6% increase from last year. That's $1.69 million more. And there are a lot of puts and takes that are in that number. I wanted to highlight for you that of the increases in that number, 9 million of that is compensation that's been negotiated that reflects the results, the annualization of the FY21 increases as well as FY22 increases. Next to that is a $4 million reduction of services, and that's primarily from staffing, because of course the budget is primarily driven by the number of staff on the department. Notably, this recommended budget cuts the same 27 sworn positions as were recommended for abolishment back in round 1 of the savings plan last summer, July 2020. I'm just going to go over some. This is not a comprehensive list, but I'm going to point out some of the positions that are recommended for abolishment. 5 middle school SROs that were never deployed, 6 traffic complaint officers, 2 centralized traffic complaint officers, 5 patrol investigations unit officers, 3 centralized auto theft officers, and then 1 K9, 1 SWAT, 1 emergency services unit. And I wanted to point out, when this list was developed, it was also what also was going on in the department at that time was the police chief's proposed reorganization plan of the department. So some of these recommendations actually reflect a reorganization that has not quite happened yet. That has now been approved by the county executive, and it will go into effect July 1st. And part of that centralization or reorganization to provide better and more efficient public safety services to the community includes centralized traffic instead of having it all district-based. And I'll get to that in a minute. So whenever the puts and takes, I have made a recommendation to restore the 9 traffic officers that have been reduced in this budget. That would cost $1.3 million. The committee obviously did not take that recommendation. I was trying to balance Vision Zero traffic safety goals, since traffic-related serious injuries and deaths also disparately impact people of color in the county. And my recommendation was based on a study done in North Carolina that when police officers prioritize stopping people for significant safety reasons rather than the minor infractions, they resulted in both increased road safety, fatalities decreased by 28%, and reduced racial disparities in the traffic stops. Those racial disparities fell by 21%. Chief Jones noted this last week, but all 1,300 traffic officers all 1,300 police officers are responsible for traffic enforcement. If they see something, they're supposed to enforce the law. These traffic officers that are recommended for reduction, however, focus solely on safety, and they're data-driven. Based on a recommendation from the Vision Zero Equity Task Force last year, focus on the 5. Again, this theme that is taking over a bunch of different larger jurisdictions like San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Berkeley has now adopted it too, where they focus on prioritizing, significant traffic infractions and not worrying about the minor things like a busted out taillight. The committee discussed at length all of the complexity of the issues surrounding police reform and the significant need to reduce the racial disparities in traffic stops. And Wade Holland was also there at the time and indicated ultimately the goal is self-enforcing roads based on design, but those are decades and billions of dollars away. Right now, we still need enforcement. The department can do this traffic enforcement. The recommendation was based on helping them maximizing their ability to meet Vision Zero traffic goals. The committee also discussed reductions in IT staff, and that was in light of the Council's Bill 4520, which is requiring additional data collection and analysis from the department. This involves 2 positions that are lapsed for 6 months in FY22. At this point, it doesn't look like it'll impact the council's needs under the amendments of the bill, but I will keep an eye on that and report back to council if anything changes. They also discussed adding 2 new sergeant positions to the Internal Affairs Division. Its staffing allocation hasn't changed in more than 16 years. I believe they have 6 authorized positions. They have not always been fully staffed. In 2020, they had 220 complaints filed. They opened 154 cases. 34 of those were formal investigations. I just wanted to do a brief comparison. In 2017, it took an average of 66 days to close cases. And in 2020, it took an average of 234 days to close cases. So these 2 additional positions will help reduce and expedite and make more efficient and effective their internal investigations. There was a lot of discussion about ongoing concerns about attrition. While the budget adds 12 additional recruits to the winter class, and they'll have 24 in the summer and 34 in the winter classes, the attrition rate is much higher now than it has been in the past. And during the Public Safety Committee work session, the chief noted that 119 officers are currently in the discontinued service retirement plan, and a total of 211 officers are eligible to retire. And that was of last week. And this is out of 1,300 officers. I've gotten updated numbers, and I've been told that 454 officers are eligible for early retirement, 232 are eligible for normal retirement, and 124 are currently in the drop. That means they have to leave within 3 years of their entering the drop. The Public Safety Committee, which I'll get to briefly on some of their follow-up items, is following up on hiring, retention, recruiting, benefits, and that type of thing later after the budget is over. They also discussed the elimination of the centralized auto theft unit, elimination of 5 school resource officers, additional funding for taser replacement and mobile video system in-vehicle cameras, The one CIP issue is a technical adjustment to the 2nd District Police Station for a savings of $900,000. That just reflects actual savings. On Circle 29 of the staff report, there are increased crime rates, crime data over the past 15 months for you to look at. And then the committee approved 2 technical adjustments requested by OMB that includes the reflection of 2 FTEs that were lost in the reduction of part-time background investigation specialists, and also reflects the loss of a grant of $165,000. The committee is recommending following up on several issues in the fall or when information becomes available, and that includes police reform at the state level in general, police reform at the state level that will impact internal investigations, and to ensure that the department has sufficient staff and resources to implement required changes, further examination, as I mentioned, on police hiring, salaries, benefits, and retention, and also on police discipline in general.
Thank you very much, Ms. Farag. And again, we are, as was mentioned, we are extremely concerned about the attrition and recruitment of our police department. We are losing numbers. Our crime rate is increasing, and we need to get a handle on that. We want to attract the very best people for these important positions. And of course, we have so many different groups that have looked at various tasks and the task forces for and the audits and consultant reports. So we know that this is going to be an ongoing discussion, that though obviously it's as we mentioned yesterday, it's the chicken and the egg in some cases for budgets. We need to have money set aside so that when these groups and organizations come back with suggestions, that we will be able to fulfill them as well. I have always maintained, not just for this department, but for every department, that if we want them to do the job, then we have to provide the resources necessary for them to do the job. And if we don't, it is not their fault that if they can't perform, it's our fault. So that is where we are at this point. I believe that the committee recommendation is a fair one. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you. This is not an easy climate for our police, for those affected by our police and our residents on police issues, and it's definitely not an easy time to be doing policymaking. So you've really brought a lot to the table and a lot of experience and have been great to work with on this. I'm very mindful of the climate we're working in, and I know we need to update the police budget and move forward with the reforms that our constituents are looking for. It's required a lot of scrupulous thought and a keen eye toward community engagement and restoring public trust. And we've started that process. We know we have a long way to go, and we've put some structures in place like the Police Advisory Commission and the Reimagining Task Force that we're going to continue to be in close touch with. There's a number of things I'll just say I support here and recognize as progress, even though if I wouldn't characterize us as being in a perfect situation, which I've never seen a budget where I sort of felt that way. I'm glad we're moving forward to change our model for school safety and remove SROs for our schools. Folks know I've supported that for a while. I'm skeptical of some elements of the CRO staffing plan, but at this juncture, I believe that's really in the county executive's hands and the school board with the recommendations we anticipate from them. And I don't really believe the budget's an appropriate place to change the staffing model as some advocates have suggested. I do hope the task force is looking at these issues will take the time to consider and advise us on whether that model makes sense, all the elements of it to achieve our goals. I also am cognizant that we can't take SROs out without having security for our schools and without having mental health support for our schools. 97% of calls to police were initiated by principals who needed help to deal with a serious incident. Obviously, there's still safety concerns in our schools that have to be addressed, and we have to comply with state law. So there's much more discussion and more action to be done, and I just want all of our residents to realize that this budget doesn't reflect, I don't think, any belief that we're done in this area. So thanks to everybody who's contributed to it. I look forward to the ongoing discussion in this area. I think we've made progress, but we have a ways to go. Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the work of the Public Safety Committee, which I was able to join, another ad hoc committee that I'm a frequent contributor to, and to Chairman Katz. And I appreciate your comments about the school safety issue. As everyone knows, I've been working on this along with my colleagues for a long time. Last July, I proposed a budget amendment as part of the first savings plan that we considered, to eliminate the SRO program and to remove those savings, to get $3 million in savings from those officers, to abolish those positions and move those officers that are currently in that position into other positions within the department. Since then, a lot's happened. That started a year-long or more conversation, a good conversation where we've heard from the community, we've heard from students and activists and every party engaged, parents and the like. And we're in a different place now where we will not have police officers in the schools in an enforcement capacity. County executive has proposed this CRO model. I will note that I have significant concerns as well, and just lack of clarity. If you look at the packet for today, for example, CRO is not in there. There's nothing in it's not, you couldn't, if you look through the whole packet, there's nothing mentioned about CRO. The only mention of SROs is about the 5 middle school officers that were removed. And so this is a ongoing, and we do need from the executive, and I'll get to this in a minute, more explanation about what this is, and what he intends to do, because frankly, there's lack of clarity for us, and I think for the community, and some concerns about that this would not just be an SRO program in another name. And so today, actually, right after this session, the task force, the working group rather, that we co-convened, Councilmember Rice and I, with the school system that is student-centered. Just about half of the members are student representatives, and parents and teachers, and community groups, and as well as government leadership, MCPS itself, HHS, are having their first meeting to talk about, which is also co-chaired by a student. The first time we've had like a co-chair be a student as part of this task force. And they're going to be reviewing all the student supports that are needed in around social emotional health, safety, wellness, mental health, and making recommendations to the government, to the councils, the school board, to us, to the executive by the end of July. We also have the county executive's internal working group that is meeting to also come up with additional recommendations to, I would assume, implement this model, which the CROs that he's proposed are part of. And so we're at a different place right now where I do think we want to allow those processes to play out. I will ask, and I will be asking that, for example, if the CRO model is just officers around the schools checking in, coming in the building, which I think the county executive has now backed off on, but initially that was part of it, I would not be in support of that. But it's unclear to me exactly what it is. I do know that in the most extreme circumstances, there will be a time when police need to be called. And we want the school system to take the lead with the police department to work on that MOU and make those rare, extremely violent circumstances and put that in their MOU. And we can provide input and guidance on that process, but that needs to be led by them. And I believe that in strong part, and be informed by the recommendations that come from these groups. Again, one that meets today for the first time. And so I think what I'd like to ask that we do is include budget language that the executive would have to implement a model here related to the CROs that does not have CROs in the school building, and that he will work with the school system and with the department under his purview, which is under his purview, to clearly define when and how police, and only in the most extreme emergency situations, would enter the building. And I think I need guidance from our staff on that budget language, but I'd like to propose and move that we would include that in the approval of this budget.
Second.
Mr. President, if I can, could we get some clarification on how this would work? And I wanted a acknowledge Chief Jones is here and Assistant Chief Frank is here as well. Could we get some information on how that would work with the state law? There's a state law in place, as you had mentioned earlier, that we have to be able to follow as well. So
that would be great, Chairman. I think somebody's here from OCA that might be able to speak to that point.
Okay. I don't see anybody on my screen.
Ethan, AC, Frank, thank you so much for being here and for all your hard work. We miss you, Darren and D3. As usual, D3 gets rated to bring more talent to Rockville, but all right, we'll live with it. Mr.
Not just D3.
Yeah, Mr. Hanson is here. Yeah.
Good morning. So you've asked about the impact of the state law, which is the Maryland Safe to Learn Act, which was enacted by the General Assembly in 2018 in response to numerous school shootings across the country. That act created a Maryland Center for School Safety, and that center's obligation was to gather data, and after the data was gathered, to create guidelines for the implementation of placing school resource officers in various schools. And with respect to schools that didn't have an SRO, that there had to be in place an adequate plan for providing law enforcement coverage for schools. The center did develop, I believe, a set of guidelines to be followed by each local jurisdiction. Meaning by local jurisdiction, I mean both the Board of Educations, the local Board of Educations, and the local law enforcement agencies in those jurisdictions. So under this act, the school system is supposed to negotiate an agreement with the local law enforcement agency. So in this case, MCPS would negotiate an understanding with our police department. And that plan has to implement the guidance, the guidelines that were developed by the state. So the bottom line becomes, for what does that mean in terms of our flexibility, your flexibility as council in terms of the budget? I think it puts the county in with very limited options here. I think we have an obligation legally to fund the plan that the school system has developed that implements the guidelines from the state. I think under the preemption doctrines that would apply to us, I don't think we have much choice in that regard. With respect to imposing budget language, I think it's certainly you could, I think, legally put in a request in the budget that the executive provide you with a response. I don't think, though, however, you could condition spending on that happening, because again, I think we are obligated legally to fund the plan that the school system has adopted to implement the state guidelines.
Yeah, and if I could just thank you, Mr. Hanson. That's really important. One of the things I just will add is that this law, the Safe to Learn Act, has been in effect for a number of years, and there have never been, nor are there proposed to be, school resource officers in elementary schools. And so we have been in compliance with the law of the adequate coverage law, part of the law, which again was added on the floor. And I went back and looked at the legislative history in the assembly because they wanted to give jurisdictions the option to not have to have a police officer in every school. And so there is a way to provide adequate coverage that doesn't have a police officer in every school. And we are moving away from that model in our high schools and obviously abolishing the middle school positions. But your point is well taken, that the school system still has the responsibility to put in place a plan that implements that law, and that we have a responsibility to fund that plan. And I think that's important. And all that work is happening right now. Today, there's a meeting, there's other meetings going on. And so we need to let that work happen and still send a signal, which I think is appropriate in the budget language, that we want to better understand what is being proposed, and also that we don't want this to be SROs under another name. But also understanding that when police do have to respond, we want those police to be familiar with the building and the staff and know who those folks are. So I think I'll pause there and just let my motion stand. I appreciate the second from Councilmember Navarro. I'm sure others want to speak. Thank you.
Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I first also want to thank the Public Safety Committee, Councilmember Katz, Alberto Hucker for all their work. Of course, our police department, Mr. Jones, and the community. Also the leadership of the school system, because this is definitely an issue that in many ways, I think it represents and it's symbolic of the desire of this entire community and the leadership of Montgomery County to ensure this balance of public safety while addressing many of the concerns of the community and looking at data. And, I'm the first one to say that it is important to recognize that our county for many years has worked very hard, proactively, to ensure that we are constantly responding to the many issues that might present themselves vis-a-vis public safety. And there are a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different realities, because oftentimes, and as someone who sat at the HHS committee before on this particular body, and then of course member of the Board of Education, there are always those areas where communities that have grown exponentially felt differently about their public safety coverage and wanted more police presence, because in many instances, people from outside our county were coming into particular communities to commit crimes, knowing that for some reason there was not that much police presence. And we've worked very hard on these issues. And I will say in terms of an overarching observation that we are definitely in a different moment in time. And not all jurisdictions have stepped up to take a look and to engage in these types of conversations and seek to find the best possible, most productive, balanced way to respond. And I think that needs to be acknowledged, because a lot of times I feel that, we tend to just get the negative feedback. But I know for a fact, that there are many other jurisdictions that have not even tried to address some of these issues. And so in that way, I feel that this work that we have engaged in is important, and it's not done. And I think every single member of this council has stepped forward to provide some kind of contribution to this conversation. I know that, I shared with my colleagues early on in February, actually, is when I began this conversation, met with the school system, met with stakeholders, met with HHS, made sure to check in with each of my colleagues, looked at all the different things that we had seen come forward, and sent a proposal, just, an opportunity for a model after conversations with the county executive as well, that would look at a comprehensive way forward, that would look at this notion of making sure that we enhance the student supports, mental health supports in our school system, and that we look at scalability, that looked at how do we provide public safety coverage outside of the school building, but make sure that we are able to respond if we need to, so that the MOU would define the kinds of issues for which the school system could call in law enforcement, because that was some of the feedback that we had received, to make sure that our principals and our teachers know what kind of student supports services exist so they can be more proactive, to make sure that there's data sharing. This is something the school system asked for when we met, because we want to understand, what is the data telling us vis-a-vis arrest and disproportionality. We want to understand what are those kinds of issues. Training, very well delineated in a bill that was introduced by Councilmember Katz and Rice. That training is also super important. And unfortunately, we were never able to come as a body to have discussions about these possible models. And so here we are. But I think that we have enough information and enough possibilities here to very quickly work towards something comprehensive. And this is why I supported Councilmember Jawanda's motion. It's something that, we discussed earlier. We do this all the time. We include language in our budget resolutions to signal the intent of the council in terms of some specific things that are really important. So clarifying the cluster model is very important because it's still a bit confusing. We've heard how, yes, we are in need of more police officers. So if we are going to move towards some kind of a cluster model or community resource model, how can we figure out what other kinds of issues these school resource officers can respond to? Is it just going to be school? Is it not? All those things need to be, I think, worked out, obviously. That's going to be really critical. And also this notion of what issues can our schools call our police officers for. That, I think, goes a long way to begin this work. But I'll end with this. From the very beginning, when we started this conversation, I had said on the record that as a former member of the Board of Education who served as president twice, I understood that the school system, the Board of Education, needed to very much lead in this area because, as Mr. Hansen just described, they have to work with our police department in order to be able to present and be authorized, if you will, because of the compliance that is necessary with this Safe to Learn Act. And that needs to be just, explained and just put on the record because there's been so much confusion about this issue, about, who owns it, who can defund it and get rid of it, et cetera. The bottom line is that we do need to allow our Board of Education, our school system, to be able to work and be able to present and come up with the appropriate model in order to get and be in compliance. The good news is that I think there has been so much conversation, so much rich feedback, and I do believe that we have a blueprint that we can all embrace and that we can move forward and be a model, I think, not only in the region, but in the country. So I, again, want to thank everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to make these remarks because, as I've said, it has been a long conversation, like Councilmember Jawanda just said, since last summer. I do believe that we are in a good spot, and I look forward to continue to work with all of you collaboratively in order to get us to the best possible place. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well said, Councilmember Navarro. I'll just add, I totally agree with everything you said. I meant to thank you earlier for your longtime contributions to this sensitive, complicated debate, and to Council members Katz and Rice for their bill, to Council members Jawando and Reamer for their bill, and their recent task force. All of us, I think, care really deeply about this issue and need to do the best thing for all of our students and their parents. And somebody else here who served in another role, it's really helpful when advocates in the public understand the swim lanes. We're not the school board. We're not the executive branch. We're not the state legislature. We can't replace the executive branch. We can set policy and we can allocate funds, and we can indicate with budget language what our intent is. But we can't replace the executive branch. And I think the budget language that's suggested here is really smart and really appropriate. We do this all the time in the budget. It's a powerful thing. And we can go back to the executive branch. We can't create a program today on the dais as the council because we're not the executive branch, but we can charge them with drawing on all their professional expertise and taking the time to get it right and coming back to us. And if we need to change the funding in the future, we'll do that. But that's why we have such smart, experienced people working for us to do this work, because we can't do everything. Mr. Hanson, I just want to clarify, and I do want to recognize Dr. McKnight, thank you for being here. I'm eager to talk to you about this as well. But Mr. Hanson, it's your view, just to clarify, that it's not legal to remove CROs through budget language.
That's correct. It's not legal to adopt something that's in conflict with the plan adopted by the Board of Education.
With the state law, that would be. Okay.
Correct.
Right. And we don't want to be run afoul of state law. Okay. We've clarified that. Council Vice President Albornoz.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'll be speaking specifically to this motion, and then I want to go back in the queue because I want to speak more broadly about the general recommendations of police within the budget. But let me just make a couple observations. This conversation we've had just now is probably the most clear, probably the most reasonable, and probably the most productive, frankly, that we've had since we've begun discussing this issue last summer. And what I've come to appreciate from this body, working now on the legislative side, is that it takes time, and sometimes longer than people would like, longer than people would appreciate, but more often than not, because of the process that we follow, because of the complexities of the multiple swim lanes, as the council president so adeptly explained, we get to the right place, and I feel like we are heading in that direction here. And while I agree that there isn't clarity right now on the CRO model and how that differs from the SRO model, I very much appreciate the process that has been currently undertaken to get us to that clarity. And I think the work of Council Members Rice and Jawando to have a parallel committee, equally as important, equally as valued, equally as influential in this space, working in tandem with the group of youth workers, administrators, people who are ultimately going to be charged, including our law enforcement officials, with actually applying whatever is ultimately decided. And so having their direct feedback and input into this process so that it makes sense. And I'll just note a couple of things. In addition to, and Councilmember Jawando, I really appreciated the way you framed two elements, particularly within your comments. The first, and these are in no particular order, but is the acknowledgement that there does need to be some relationship. We can't just randomly rely on whoever happens to be patrolling that area that day or staffing that particular police district to respond to a crisis or an emergency, because there have to be those relationships. There has to be that understanding for there to be an effective and reasonable response as emergencies arise. And I think the other component that I think is important here too is building off of that within those relationships is that there were a number of, not directly in their job description, things that SROs did that need to be worked out and addressed and thought through adequately in this transition. For example, there are instances, and I've talked about this from the dais before. I can speak about this in the first person, where a high school student who's being actively recruited by a gang and is told if he doesn't join that gang, his sister will be murdered. His mother is undocumented, and so he's reluctant to come forward, doesn't know who to trust, shares this information with a youth development worker, and the youth development worker then works with the trusted law enforcement official that they have a relationship with to address the various layers and complexities of cases like this. And they happen frequently. And that needs to continue, not in its current form. I fully acknowledge that as we transition this program, but that level of trust and that relationship must be maintained. And so the working group that is working on this issue is addressing issues very much like that. And Joanne Barnes, Luis Cardona, other youth professional development workers who are on the ground working on extreme cases like this, but more common than we realize, are involved in these discussions. And so that's really important. And I know that Rochelle Rubens and Dr. Kroll are on this call as well. And I want to thank you, Dr. McKnight. I've had the chance to get to know you more professionally and personally just in the last few months. But I've been immensely impressed with your deep understanding of the need for collaboration to be holistic in our approach, not just in addressing the safety and security issues, which are clear, which are important, but also the other ancillary issues that arise that are very important to addressing the very complex and challenging needs of a number of our children and a number of our families. And these kids are not, unfortunately, often the ones who come forward to speak, who come forward to join an advisory committee. But these instances are real and something that we have to take very much into account. So in summary, before I know Barry, I guess I did bury the lead. I am going to support this motion because I think it's common sense for us to stipulate verbally what we've all expected practically, that there will be recommendations that address the safety and security issues, that comply with the law, but also address this myriad of other issues that may arise without officers being as directly engaged and involved as they were before. And so those positive elements need to remain in place in some form or fashion, and that's what this group is working on. With that, I yield back to you, Mr. President, on this specific motion. But again, I want to come back to the queue to discuss more broadly the police budget. But thank you.
You're solidly in the queue. Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you. Could we just start by clarifying the motion, please? It's a little unclear to me.
Councilmember Jawanda.
Sure. The motion was that we would include budget language that stipulates that we need an explanation, a full explanation about what the CRO model entails, which I have not been able to find. And then two, that there would be the executive would work with the school system and based on the recommendations of these groups to stipulate to work on that MOU that when police officers can enter the building, and also including the sense that we think that should be only in the most urgent in emergency circumstances.
Okay, thank you for that. I think we need to end the SRO program, and I don't think we should approve the CRO program. And I think what we ought to do, but I'm hearing very clearly from colleagues, where they are, is not fund the positions that are SRO or that would become CRO, and those officers can be reapplied to new positions and deployed, and MCPS and MCPD can work together on a safety plan to meet the state guideline that would be based, I think, substantially on the latter part of the motion, which is the minimal, only calling police under more exigent circumstances. And then our partner agencies and all these groups can proceed to build a system for police-free schools that are safe, and that will, I think, achieve our vision, which is to decriminalize a lot of this youth behavior. The comment that these task forces will recommend what was asserted they will recommend is very unclear to me. And I think it's because of the model of the CRO. The CRO model has been characterized by the executive branch as continuing to require daily check-ins at the school by the officer, participating in school events, patrolling places where students hang out, lunch spots, and things like that. And I think it is creating a lot of confusion in this conversation. I think these task forces they will continue to be confused about what the policy guidance is from the county council and the county government. And I think we're hoping that they will make a recommendation that is perhaps what some of us want, or perhaps we're hoping they'll make a recommendation that we'll all be happy with, rather than taking it on here. So to me, we ought to just be really clear so that our ensuing task forces will know the guidance that they're working through, which is to build a model for safe police-free schools that doesn't rely upon police officers except under very extreme circumstances, and they can begin to hire and train employees in the schools to meet the safety needs in the community. I think that's what we ought to do. And what I'm seeing personally is just that the continued confusion around CROs is holding that process back from achieving that. I think that is closer to what most everybody wants. I think Councilmember Albornoz has identified an example of a difficult issue that needs to be carefully addressed. And there are many issues that need to be carefully addressed. But what has been proposed in this budget, what we have seen, is that these 23 positions, while not being stationed in the building, will continue to do more or less the same work. They'll be active in the school, they'll be on patrol, patrolling students. And how are we going to be confident that that's not what's going to happen? And the only way I think to really be confident that that's not where we're going is not to have those positions. And then the department will figure out how to staff and meet the state obligation and work with the school system, under a different model. And I think that's what we ought to do. So perhaps that's where it would end up, organically through various task forces. But I don't think any of us are clear. I think we've all acknowledged that we're not clear. I also agree this has been a more helpful conversation thus far than we've had yet. And I appreciate that very much. And I completely share the view that everyone's making contributions here. And, it's been an extremely difficult process for all of us. It's very emotional, very personal. I don't know, this is how change gets made. But so in any event, the motion itself, I think the latter part of the motion is clear. The former part, to provide clarity about the CRO model. I mean, I do think we ought to have a county council discussion about the CRO model. That would be great. Let's ask for that. We have received clear representation of what that is. It was given to us in testimony by Caroline Sturgis in January, and it was repeated in testimony again in February. So it has been explained. I've had briefings from Ms. Sturgis and the team. I've been told that those officers will not respond to 911 or other calls. They have only one beat, and that's the students. So, I think it's very clear what they are building at this time. And if we don't make a change, that is what we will get. So that's why I'm concerned. And I think a better approach would, again, just be not to fund the SRO positions, these 23 positions, to have those officers transition back into meeting the shortage in the department, of which there are a growing number of unfilled positions we're concerned about, and we'll work together on a plan. I also recognize that that's not where the votes are. I guess that's my comment.
Okay. Any other colleagues? Councilmember Mondo. Oh, sorry. Councilmember Glass just came in.
No. Council President Hucker, I've been
Are you speaking
for like 33 minutes.
You're totally in the queue, Councilmember Rice. Were you speaking to the motion or to the police budget in general? Because I had you
to
in
the motion.
To the motion.
Yes.
Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. So, look, as chair of the Education and Culture Committee, let me just be very clear that some of us are clear. in terms of what it is that we need to move forward with. And I think that Councilmember Jawando and I were very clear in terms of our working group in that we were going to listen to the voices of the students. We were going to make sure that they, who are key stakeholders in this, working together with leadership within MCPS and nonprofit community who have always been advocates for our students and their betterment and well-being, could all come together and frame a program that they felt would work to help support them. That is the reason why I transitioned from where I was to where I am today. It is because of the voice of the students. And yet here we are again, having conversations by some that are saying that we know better, that we're going to go ahead of the students and say, this is what we're going to do for you because we know what's best. No, I want to make it very clear that, again, to the students who thanked me for their support, the students that I listened to, the students that I spoke with, that I heard you, and that we are fully in support of making sure that your voice is lifted up, that we have a process that's in place that will allow for you to shape what is to happen in the school system for you and for your future colleagues who will follow in the school buildings. That's really important, and I hope that message is loud and clear. You heard from Councilmember Jawando earlier. We're about to meet with some of the leaders of the task force. I know that Ms. Rubin is one of those who is leading this work group, and so I really want to thank her for stepping up and volunteering to lead in that capacity. And I can tell you that I know I've had multiple conversations with Ms. Rubin. Ms. Rubin is also clear and has heard from students as well as from stakeholders about what it is that needs to be done. What's not clear and what is true, and I think that Councilmember Navarro and Councilmember Jawando and Councilmember Albornoz and others frame this the best, is that we're still not sure what's going to happen with our police department and how we ensure response times for everything that goes on. We're still not sure about that piece. And so we will need to come back to that. That's an important part. But what needs to happen right now is the basis of the supports that are necessary for our kids to ensure that inside the school building, each and every day, they have what they need to be successful. That is the most important thing, because we've already said we're not having the officers in the school system in that capacity any longer. We've said that. That's clear. Everybody. I'm the number one proponent of saying school resource officers. And here I am saying I am okay with saying that is not the strategy that we're going to have any longer with police officers patrolling our school hallways, right? And enforcing discipline. That is not their job. But what needs to happen right now, and the reason why this work group is so important, is because our students need to feel as though they have a voice. You know, we just came off of, on Tuesday, celebrating our council member for a day and talking about student voice and what it means to have elected officials and adults listen to our kids and listen to what they're saying. And we have an opportunity to do that. There is no, this fierce sense of urgency. Well, yes, there's a sense of urgency, but quite honestly, what you heard from Councilmember Reamer about budgetary, the reality is that there's no budget savings. It's not like you can fire officers without cause. These officers will still remain on the force, even if the chief decided to reassign them and call them something else. So it's not even a budget emergency in something that we need to do today. We will take this up. We will take this up. That still needs to be clarified about how we ensure school safety for the most exigent circumstances. That's important. But first, let's focus on our kids. Let's focus on their voice. Let's focus on giving them an opportunity to shape policy and to talk about what it is that they want to see. And that's what this motion does. And so I really just want to thank Councilmember Jawando, Councilmember Navarro, and I especially want to thank Ms. Rubin, as well as Ms. McKnight, Chief Jones as well, and Dr. Kroll, because look, we have folks who understand that we're at a precipice here to where we can actually really get something done based on a positive momentum. Let's stop trying to divide folks. Let's stop trying to pitch sides. We are all in this together. We all care about our kids, and we all want to see them continue to go throughout our school system being safe each and every day. That's what we want as parents. That's what we want as individuals, as leaders. And I think we can do that if we move forward in this manner. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I appreciate the conversation and the in legal interpretation and procedural interpretations that we've been having today, because it just adds to the robust discussion that we've been having over the last year or so about how to keep our kids safe in school. And the approach that we're talking about, quite frankly, the status quo, has been in process for years and decades to have police in schools. And the question that we've all been grappling with and engaging with is, should we have police in schools? And I just want to reiterate that I do not think that we should have police in schools. And I know that, we're talking about the legal interpretation regarding state law, and there are still questions in my mind after this conversation of how the state law actually requires what it requires us to do and our interaction with the school board. And so we will continue that conversation. But, I start with the point that we know that when there are police in schools, there are disciplinary actions that disproportionately affect our students of color. That is the fact. And if we want our kids to feel safe in school, particularly our children of color who make up a majority of our student population, we need to figure out new policies to make them feel safe in school. And the reason we're having this conversation is because this is the budget process. In my opinion, this is when we make the decision about our spending priorities. And if we want to have police-free schools, I think now is the time that we actually do that. It's in the budget. It's the moral document many of us talk about. And that's not just my opinion, because I and all of us have been listening to students over the last year. And as for me, they've been educating me. They've been informing me, and they've been sharing their personal stories with me. And I know that there are task forces out there. And I expect the task forces to tell us that we need police-free schools. And I expect the task forces to tell us that we need more mental health support. We're the policymakers, and this is our budget. And I think that we should make this decision now. And I know that our students also need more mental health support, and I expect them to share that with us. And while we don't necessarily need task forces to tell us what we already know, it's for that reason I'm remiss that the Joint Health and Human Services Committee and Education and Culture Committee didn't accept my proposal to add $2.6 million to the budget for clinical licensed social workers to be at every school. We all agree that we should have clinical licensed social workers at our schools, and the way I think we achieve that is by putting it in the budget, because that's how budgets work. And then we can work with our county agencies and departments to help stand up those programs. That's how the budget works. We make the policy, and then we work with our agencies and departments to implement them. But first, they have to have a direction. And I believe that this is the direction we need to set so that all county government could help stand them up. And I recognize it's not going to be at the snap of a finger, but we have to set that direction. And I just don't want us to miss another opportunity, because I think now is the time. I understand the sentiments of my colleagues. They've been sharing their thoughts. We've taken votes over the last year, and a number of you and the county executive have stood up task forces. And so we'll wait to hear what the task forces say. We'll look to the recommendations that they make, and then we will make decisions because we're the policymakers. But again, I think this is just a missed opportunity to set direction for all of the county government to go in the direction where I would like to go, and I know a number of us would like to go, and clearly the students would like us to go there as well. So more conversations to be had. I yield back, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilmember Glass. Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to colleagues. I do think, at least to start the conversation, this was really clear and constructive, more so perhaps than we've had, to just soberly outline what our role is, what it isn't, what the law says, what it doesn't, and to try to chart a path forward. I think that has been really helpful. I will say, and I'm supportive of the motion, and I'm happy to include budget language. I do think that is beyond appropriate as we appropriate funds to include language of what our expectations are with the deployment of those funds, recognizing that we don't manage the police department and we don't oversee the school system and we don't set state law. And so I think that the proposal struck that reasonable balance within the confines of what our role is, what our role isn't. There's been a lot of confusion and frustration about that over the last many months, which I can totally appreciate, and some of which, frankly, I share. But I think that this is squarely in our court. I am a little bit confused as the conversation has proceeded of what the process is going to be. It seemed to me that the budget language is to provide money in the budget and create expectations based on the appropriation of those funds, and insist that the executive branch, the school system, the police department, and the other relevant entities come back to us with how they are moving forward with these funds and with these programs. That seemed to me where this was headed. I'm not totally convinced of that as I've heard the conversation continue, and I still don't think it's clear to me. I don't think it's clear to the public of how all of these different efforts intersect. We have the effective law enforcement for all police audit that the executive branch has undertaken. We have the county executive's press conference about moving forward with a plan for these issues. We have the Councilmember Rice and Jawando task force or work group that we learned about. We have the Police Advisory Commission, that is the official policy group that this body has appointed, presumably to address issues just like these. And then we have the Reimagining Public Safety group that the executive branch has put forward, presumably to address issues just like these, that has come up with recommendations of how they want to proceed, and it's up to the county executive to determine how to move forward with those. So I would just suggest, related to this motion, but perhaps separately from this motion, that perhaps Council President, there be a memo, or Council President and Public Safety Chair that explains to the body, that could be shared with the public, of how we intend to move forward with these questions. Who is responsible for what? I mean, generally, the body would formally delegate a group to provide recommendations on a policy issue if we were taking it up. It seems to me that we have 5 ad hoc and formal groups, perhaps even more, and some of us reference one, some of us reference the other, and I think we're adding more confusion than clarity on this issue. And obviously, this is among the more important and sensitive and serious issues that we are dealing with when it comes to keeping our community safe and ensuring trust from our community with those that are charged to protect it. So I would humbly request that and suggest that. I think it would be very helpful for me personally. I think it would be helpful for the body, and most importantly, I think it would provide some understanding and clarity for how the council intends to proceed on these issues for the public, because I think ultimately we haven't provided them a lot of understanding of what we intend to do, and that hasn't made this process any easier. I think, in fact, it's made it much harder. So with that, I'll yield back and appreciate the consideration.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, Mr. President, I was actually just texting you as chair of the Education and Culture Committee. Let me just be very clear, because it was laid out in the press release, but I'll say it again. When it comes to the working group reports back to the county council. This process is no different from any of the other things, and it reports back to the school system. It reports to the public. All of this information is out there, and it's no different from anything else that we do. Economic development has multiple different ad hoc committees, as well as institutions, both private, nonprofit, who all weigh in on all the issues and say, this is what we need to do. This is no different from any of the other things that we do, folks. What we've done is we've made sure that we had something that was streamlined, that was centered to what it is that our students are saying that they need. So again, I'll just reiterate what was in the press release that was disseminated to everyone that said that this group then reports back to MCPS, reports back to us as the council, who is the funding body. Many of the proposals that may come out of this working group may actually be things that solely go straight to MCPS for MCPS implementation. And just as you aptly stated, Councilmember Friedson, it is one of those things where, yes, indeed, some of the things we don't have purview over, just like placing social workers inside schools without school authorization. Those are things that have to be talked about. We have to talk about strategically where we want to put them first, where they're going to be, where's the greatest need. Maybe we need something else in others. It's kind of like linkages to learning and Rec Extra and all the things that we do, EBD, right? High school wellness centers. It's all working in concert. We don't just prescribe to folks what it is that happens in their buildings. That's not what we do. We work in concert together with them. That's why Dr. McKnight is here. She and I have been talking constantly throughout this process, as I know others have, but me as chair of the Education and Culture Committee, let me just be very clear. This has always been a partnership with MCPS, not a prescription to MCPS. And as a former state delegate, as a person who was a former state lawmaker, I understand the difference in role between what it is that I used to do from 2006 to 2010 versus what I do now since 2010. There is a distinct difference between the two, and this requires us to have a partnership, to work together with our school system, to help them, to help our students, to make sure that we create a better and more robust system. And so again, that's why I just want to make sure that folks understand, let's take down the rhetoric. Let's take down all of the, I'm better than somebody else because I'm saying that, oh, I'm against school officers in schools. There's a single person here who said, I think I haven't heard a person who said, I still want officers in the same capacity in our schools. I haven't heard it today. So again, let's be very clear about where we are and what we're working towards. We're working to change, but let's make sure that we get the process right. Let's make sure we abide by the law, and let's make sure that we have our students' voices heard and our partners' voices heard, and incorporate all of that together. This is, as you heard at the beginning, going to take time. And with us working all together, we can do this actually in a very short time frame. You heard Councilmember Joando lay out, we're looking at July. So we're not that far off, folks. So again, let's take a breath, press the pause button, work together, and we can accomplish some great things for our school system, for our kids, and for the overall safety of our community. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well said. I love me some Councilmember Rice and Hyde Dudgeon. I'll just add, as somebody who hasn't initiated any of these recommending bodies, I know it may be confusing to people. I don't begrudge any of our colleagues or members of the executive branch or anybody else their ability to, initiate some debate and discussion and show some leadership in this area. It may seem duplicative to some people. I think that's very much in the eye of the beholder, and it can be taken up with the initiators of any of these bodies. But, this is Montgomery County. We believe in our small d democracy. We have a vigorous marketplace of ideas, and I think we're all there smart enough to shop there for the ones we like. And I don't think we know fully what the council wants to do in this area yet. We will consult with the school board. We will consult with the state legislators who passed the law that constrains us in this area. We will consult with our county attorney and our professional staff, and we'll consult with our police department and our school system, and we'll move forward. And I think my sense of this body is that we're comfortable doing this now, and we'll be comfortable with doing other things based on the recommendations from all kinds of smart professionals and volunteers later. And that's how the process works. Councilmember Friedson.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Just to clarify, I don't think I was dialing up the rhetoric or anything like that. I'm not sure. My suggestion was yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't directed at me, because I was just asking for clarification. I totally agree that we want to get the process right, that nobody has the exclusive sovereignty over good ideas, particularly those who are the most impacted. So I appreciate all the efforts that are happening. My only point was and continues to be that if we're going to get the process right, we ought to set out what the process is in a clear, transparent way. So all I'm suggesting, it was suggested before, continue to suggest now, is that we clearly articulate that to colleagues and most importantly to the public, because I don't think that it is clear on what that is. It doesn't mean that there has to be one group or one place or one entity. It doesn't mean that we have to be in control of every aspect of this, but we ought to have a process, and we ought to let people know what that process is, at the very least, so they understand how to engage in the process, because ultimately the most important thing we can do here is hear from the folks who are most impacted. And Councilmember Albornoz spoke earlier, I thought very eloquently, about groups of folks who aren't likely to be part of these task force and these entities, and yet who are severely and significantly and disproportionately impacted by the decisions that we make. So the more clear we can make that, the more transparent we can make that, I think the better off we will be, the sounder policy we will make. I think we took a step in a very positive direction today. I want to be very clear about that. I tried to say that from the outset, but I think we could be a little bit more clear. I think we'd be a little bit more transparent. I think we can articulate what our process is going to be a little bit better, and that's all I'm requesting and asking for. And hopefully that could be the step that follows the step that we're taking today, which I do think is a positive step in a good direction. Thank you.
Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you, Mr. President. Robust conversation here. Just want to say a few things. July 2020, I wrote a memo to everyone on this body making the recommendation that we eliminate the 23 school resource officers positions and reallocate that funding. So just let's be clear about that. And I have never been in support of the school resource officer program as it exists because of the disproportionality for our students of colors and students with disabilities, and because there are better and more effective tools to keep our students safe and to help them with their social, emotional, mental health, and well-being. This task force that meets today is focused on what those supports are, which are proven by data and research. I spent a lot of my career on this to reduce the need for police interaction. And we have to make these recommendations in collaboration with everyone who's on this call. To Councilmember Rice's point, if we allocate money, and we've done it, we've already started it. The work has been continuing. The Education and Culture Committee, we appropriated $750,000, which I introduced with Councilmember Reamer when we introduced our bill, which is another piece that is still pending, by the way, 4620 to direct our police to not be school resource officers. And we invested $750,000 in restorative justice, which is now going to be training all 40 of our middle schools, over 1,400 staff and administrators. which is a clearly research demonstrated way to support students and to reduce the need to call the police, because they're already not going to be in the building. There's no proposal on here that they're going to be in the building, and proximity matters. And that's a change. And I appreciate Councilmember Rice and others for coming along with that. And that was a process over the last year. And we still have more work to do. We're still in the process. So this robust level of supports, we have a whole set of category 2 items that we're coming back to because this is an odd budget year because of the pandemic. And we have all said, the joint EC and HHS committee, we are going to make robust investments in social workers and restorative justice trainers, go down the line, crisis intervention counselors, school psychologists. There's been a number of, I have previously made proposals that we should have a school psychologist in every high school. We don't currently. All of that's going to be talked about and considered, but we have to do it in partnership with our various agencies and departments, the school system, the students, the parent groups, the community groups, the Department of Health and Human Services. That's going to happen out of this task force. And doing that alone is part of the system that needs to be in place. The school system has the primary responsibility to, when police need to be called an emergency, to have an outline an MOU about when they can be called into the building and for what reasons. That's consistent with that restorative justice practice and approach and model, right? And they're going to be working on that. And that's part of the county executive's work with the police, as the head of the police department, the executive of the county, working in partnership with the school system. We certainly have views on that. I don't believe that police should be, as I said, be called unless there's extreme circumstances. And when they are, they should be familiar with the school building and be in line with what's happening in that school building around restorative justice. And so I think that there's a lot been said that we should just end the funding. I suggested that a year ago, or a little less than a year ago. Now we're at a different stage where we're all acknowledging that police shouldn't be in the building. And I want to thank Councilmember Navarro. I neglected to do this at the beginning. This idea for the budget language is something she and I discussed, and she was very helpful because she served 17 years on the council, or not on the council, between the school board and the council, to make a recommendation that we do this approach, and we worked on it together, and I want to thank her for that. So if we're going to do this summer, this is not some far off process, and I think the budget language is appropriate because all I had on paper about the CRO model was something that said, when we had those briefings, is that they're going to be redesignated, they won't be placed in school facilities, and they'll only be called when incidents that escalate towards violence and can't be resolved appropriately by restorative justice practitioners and school personnel. They will have specialized training, and they will become familiar with restorative justice practices. That's it. There's like a paragraph. That's all I've seen. When Ms. Sturgis testified before us, she said they would be doing lunch check-ins. Then I heard from county executive they wouldn't be. So I still don't. That's all I've seen is 2 paragraphs in writing, and we need to get clarity on that. But as it stands, I'm not comfortable, saying I'm not in favor of the CRO model. But these processes are going to work out. Even if we removed the money right today, as Councilmember Reamer suggested, the executive could set up the CRO model with existing officers. It's not our authority.
Absolutely.
Now, then we could pass the bill, which is why the bill is still pending, that he and I introduced, if he were to do that. I don't think he's going to take that action. But my point being is we have to work together. This cannot be some adversarial, gotcha, I'm going to do this, and force you to do what you got to do. We have to work together. And we've made significant progress. We've come a long way. So, and to Councilmember Freeze's approach, I know it hasn't always seemed thoughtful and coordinated. That's because this is murky. Even when we were appropriating funding for SROs, there was a role that the council was playing, the school system was playing. It's always been this kind of murky role. So I think we've come a long way at where we need to be. And this budget language will send a strong message that where we think we need to go. And then this body will come back to Councilmember Glass's points and others and make robust recommendations about the supports that are proven to reduce the need for disparate discipline and arrest, as well as delineate, with the school board taking the lead, which is their appropriate role, when police can enter the building with our suggestions and support. And that's what this is about. So I just wanted to clear that up because a lot's been said. No one's more against police officers being in schools than Councilmember Will Jawando. So anyone to suggest that and to propose to put my amendment forward that I did a year ago and to try to stake out a different position is wrong. And so I think what we need to do is let these processes play out and do what's best for students. And that's what we're going to start at 11:30 today when that group starts meeting. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilmember Joando. Okay. I think that's all the requests to speak. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. That is Councilmember Katz, Councilmember Albornoz, Councilmember Glass, Councilmember Raymer, Councilmember Rice, Councilmember Navarro, Councilmember Joando, Councilmember Friedson. All those opposed? No one. Great. Motion passes. Back to the police budget. Councilmember Reamer, you want to be in this queue, correct?
Well, I just want to say, I was going to make a motion not to fund the SRO positions.
Right.
Will not do that. So we'll move on. I don't have any other comments on the budget.
Thanks. Council Vice President Albornoz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know we're going over, but I wanted to just share some broad discussion and comment regarding the overall police budget. And let me just acknowledge, you did a great job just a little while ago prefacing in your comments the complexities of the different layers that we're discussing right now. And I really want to thank Chairman Katz for his continued leadership and stewardship as we've tried to navigate these waters to both meet this moment of racial justice, of racial equity, while also balancing the safety and security of our residents and acknowledging the strong infrastructure that is currently in place that has been established over generations within this police department. Yesterday, serendipitously, I've been wanting to do this for a while, but now I'm fully vaccinated, so I was able to do it. I went on a ride along. It was only supposed to be 2 hours. It was supposed to be from 6 to 8 o'clock, but I ended up doing it until almost 11 o'clock. And, you know, it's been several years since I'd done a ride along, and I want to acknowledge, I think all of my colleagues have participated in one at some point. Councilmember Joando and I have discussed he's participated in numerous ride-alongs over the years. But it is an immensely helpful tool to provide some context, to provide some real-life situations that even momentarily put us in the shoes of officers as they address issues. Last night alone, within a 2-hour period, the officer, and I want to thank Captain Jim Brown, who was my host and drove me around last night. We responded to 3 domestic violence cases, 2 of which involved weapons. We responded to a traffic incident in which somebody had clearly run a red light nefariously, knew the light was red, did it aggressively and in a way that really could have killed someone. And Officer Brown, you know, pulled this person over. Turned out they were late for church and had a very robust and reasonable conversation with this person, looked at their record and decided that it would be better to issue a warning in that specific instance. And just, there were countless decision points over the course of the night, split decision points that are complex and have multiple layers. And so, you know, as we try to meet this moment and address very important police reform issues, which are real and that this council has moving aggressively in order to advance, we also have to acknowledge, as I know we do, but be more explicit in acknowledging the challenges of these jobs. We ask so much of these officers. They have to understand a legal background before they go into these cases. They have to have some level of mental health training to be able to diffuse situations. And the current situation we find ourselves in is immensely challenging. As Ms. Farag mentioned, we have hundreds of officers in the drop, and yet we just had 14 officers enter into this most recent class. And so, and we also have had a record number of officers at management levels leave the department to accept positions in other jurisdictions. And while we have, I think, a pretty robust infrastructure in place and pipeline transition into leadership positions, we can't just automatically assume that that's going to remain in place. And so we are going to have to come back, and we will come back very in short order to discuss these recruitment and retention issues, to expand upon the successes and the policies that we've implemented. But all of this has to be done in tandem with our police department. And I do give a lot of credit to all of my colleagues who have put forward policies to address a lot of a myriad of issues. But just last night brought home for me, and I encourage all of my colleagues to do it. It brought home for me just how hard these jobs are, and the thousands of interactions on a weekly basis that occur within each district that end up positively because of the training, because of the intentionality of the department. So we still have a long way to go. I know we do. And this is a discussion that's happening at the national level, and it's charged and it's emotional. And I very much understand and appreciate and respect the advocates that want to see change, that demand change, and understandably and rightly so. But I think there's an opportunity for us to move forward cohesively. And I think this budget, none of them are perfect, gets us closer, or at least moving in that direction. That, in addition to the incredible work of our advisory groups, which have been stood up by this council and others as well, I think we're going to end up in a good place. I really do. And that's not being Pollyannic. What I saw last night gave me some hope. And what I've been seeing for a long time, both with our advocacy and the advocates in general, also give me hope as well. So we're going to end up in a better place. I just had to share some of those thoughts and reflections because they're hot off the presses based on my experiences last night. And with that, I yield back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Councilmember Novato.
I wasn't on your list. That must be old.
I thought it was on the police budget generally. We are moving on. Councilmember Rice.
Mine was only on the SRO discussion before.
Good. Okay. And I have Council Vice President Albornoz wanting to be again at the end of the discussion. Did we just cover you?
We did. Good.
Kumbaya. Okay. Any other comments on the Councilmember Joando?
I'll be very brief. Thank you. And I'm glad to know we've moved along. I appreciate my friend and colleague, Councilmember Albornoz, Vice President Albornoz, making his comments. And glad you had the opportunity to do that right along. Obviously, this is an issue I've worked a lot on and care a lot about, and it's critically important. And you're right; they are tough jobs. There's also so much at stake. There's so much at stake for our community on every side. We're talking about life and safety, feeling welcomed and trusted and protected. And we know the history of this country. It has not gone well for people of color, folks with disabilities, our LGBTQ community, union workers. There's been a lot of history of what policing has and is. And I think we are grappling with that in a real way at an urgent moment in history right now in real time. And I remain as hopeful as you do that I think Montgomery County, and I think Councilmember Katz has said this a lot, my crying buddy, should and can be the model for the nation about how everyone feels safe. And we're going to have robust discussion as we continue, as we just did on a very small but important part of that issue. What's the role of police? What should they do? How should they interact? Whom should they interact with? What should the rules of the road be? And I have strong views that we should have a smaller, more highly trained, more highly paid, more focused police department. And that includes a whole lot of things. And we're going to have those discussions. But I come from the same place that you do, that we can do it. And we're not going to do it all in one budget. This system was built over hundreds of years. It's going to take time to put these pieces in place. We're studying traffic enforcement. We're going to have an OLO report that Councilmember Reamer suggested, and many of us wanted as well, to see how we might move police out of certain parts of traffic enforcement. We have to look at that. We're going to have to talk about it. And so I just want to acknowledge this SRO's discussion we just had is a step in that direction. We're going to continue taking steps and appreciate your framing comments and appreciate the work of my colleagues, and the work continues. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anybody? Don't see it. Oh, Councilmember. Oh, anybody else? Okay. All those in favor of the police budget as recommended by the committee, please raise your hand. As amended. Terrific. That's unanimous. Okay. What in the world is next?
Thank you.
Okay, Council Chair, Chairman Katz, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I have a feeling this conversation will not be as long as the last one. Just call me a soothsayer. But this one is on the Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. We suggested that the committee recommendation was that we recommend the county executive's budget, and we added language for the FY22 operating budget resolution to allow any unspent funding in the nonprofit security grants program to roll over into the next fiscal year. I'm going to call upon Deputy Director Craig Howard to give any additional information if he has it.
I have very little to add, Mr. Katz, just noting that the language to roll over the nonprofit security grants was based on the request that the committee made during the savings plan, and then the full council supported. So this would allow that to go forward. So each year the executive doesn't have to take out and put back in any unspent money. And that's all I have.
Thank you. And I did want to recognize Dr. Earl Stoddard, who some of you probably don't even know. I mean, we never see him. I mean, he's just sort of like a guy that, just never around. But anyhow, Dr. Stoddard, for those of you who don't realize, we see Dr. Stoddard at least twice a week and many times more than that. Thank you for all that you and your department does.
Thank you, Council Chairman. Appreciate it.
Vice President Albornoz.
Thank you. I'll just be very brief. I know we've all just been immensely impressed with Dr. Stoddard and his team throughout this last year and a half. But in addition to the pandemic, I just want to highlight for colleagues, and I know you all know this, but I want the public to know as well. This office is involved in so much. Just yesterday, with the incidents of the lines at gas stations, which has transpired over to today as well. There's an emergency management component to that in ensuring the safety and security of our county residents. And it's just one of hundreds of examples where the Office of Emergency Management is the lead in coordinating efforts to make sure that dramatic things like what's happening right now with gas rationing don't impact operations for the county. And so I just want to highlight that, Dr. Stoddard. It's not appropriate right now because we're way over time, but we are going to have to talk about that gas issue because it is now bleeding into a regional issue that I know I and a lot of us are concerned about right now. But just wanted to make those comments generally and continue to appreciate your leadership and that of your team.
Absolutely. Thanks for all your fantastic work and your team's work, keeping everybody safe and saving a lot of lives this year, Dr. Stoddard. All those in favor of the committee recommendation for the Department of Emergency.
Mr. President, I think I had texted you. That's all right.
I did as well.
I'll be brief as well.
Council members as well. Sorry, go ahead, please.
Yes. So
council member free.
I also, no problem. I'll be brief as well. Just Dr. Stoddard and your team, and you are my constituent, so it's awesome. But absolutely, the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee, of course, also has had, a lot of interaction with this office in the space of cybersecurity and some of the work that we did with the NOC and funding a lot of that and just understanding, where we were. And so, yes, I also felt like I had a very good understanding of what this office does and how it tracks different kinds of issues that affect us, and was always so impressed by the professionalism of this particular office. It has been extraordinary to see the work of this office and Dr. Stoddard, you in particular, throughout this pandemic. We're also so extraordinarily fortunate because your background is very much aligned with responding to pandemics. So we were, I think, so extraordinarily fortunate in that way. And I have to say, personally, as a council member, that, every single time I have reached out, and you will hear squeaky toys, and that's one of our pets. Every time I have reached out to you, any time my office has reached out to you, you've always been so responsive, and you have always been very straightforward. And that has been critical, especially in a time of an emergency like this one, where there's just so much chaos, especially at the very beginning. So I, for the record, just want to thank you, thank your team. and really on behalf of our constituents, our gratitude for your steady hand and also for sharing your expertise in particular. That has been a very important component of this response, along with Dr. Gales, Dr. Kroll, Dr. Bridgers. This is a A-list team. So, just really, really, truly appreciate everything that you have done to get us to this point.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman. I appreciate it. My team appreciates it as well.
Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you, Council President. I'll just echo a couple comments briefly, and then a point of appreciation to the committee for its work. But I can be tough. I ask a lot of questions. I relay a lot of my constituents' questions, and I just want to express my appreciation to you, Dr. Stoddard, for how responsive you've been, how thoughtful you have been, how serious you've taken every question that has come in. And this has been an incredibly challenging year. No community wants to have as much face time with their emergency management director as our community has had over the last year, with all due respect. You never want to have a crisis that goes on as long as ours has, but sure, am I pleased? Are we fortunate to have had someone with your background and your leadership? You really have been a shining light for the county to help get us through a really, really challenging time. I frankly think about it all the time of what we would do, but for you being in the role that you've been in with a public health background and emergency management background that you have, and your entire team has really stepped up under your leadership to help us out. And I'm glad that Council Vice President Albornoz raised the other duties, because just like the public health team is not only dealing with the pandemic in public health, the other public health challenges don't go away. So too have you and your team had to address all the other emergencies, broad and targeted emergencies that have occurred over the last year. So thank you so much for that, for your leadership. I can't call you a constituent like Councilmember Navarro, but I get to call you a friend. Not that we're competing here. And also wanted to express appreciation to you and to the committee on the nonprofit security grants. This has come up very recently. We've heard a number of issues around the region, around the country, related to anti-Semitic attacks. We have our Asian American Pacific Islander community and a number of incidents, unfortunately, that have come to fruition. I think this council really stepped up last year to put this in place, and it's going to be needed now more than ever. I'm really pleased that we're memorializing the action that this council already took, but I just want to express my appreciation for everybody on this body and to the executive and to Chief Administrative Officer Rich Madalino, all of whom have fully committed to this. I think that it not only will make a significant public safety difference for our residents, but I think it also sends an important signal to our residents that we're going to make sure that the type of attacks that have happened around the country, the type of incidents that have even happened here locally, that their county government is here to look out for them, to protect them, to put them in a position to be able to protect themselves. And I just wanted to express appreciation for that. I think this is not the largest budget item that we have today or through this process, but I think it's one of the more significant in terms of the moment that we're in, the challenges that we face, and the message that we're sending to our residents. I just wanted to make sure that I noted that. And I will just finally say we are adding language to allow you to carry over the money, but the expectation is, and I don't want to have to propose that we include budget language making this clear, but we hope that there isn't any money left, that the money gets spent. We know that it certainly is needed by our cultural organizations, our religious organizations, that everybody can practice their culture, can practice their faith free from discrimination and from any type of hateful attack that unfortunately we've seen all too much of. So spend it, but if you don't, we have budget language to protect the money to ensure that it gets to the folks that we want it to get to. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm told there was a test of the emergency broadcast system on Comcast during our debate on the emergency management system. So Good news is it worked. Okay, all those in favor of the committee recommendation, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. Good work. Councilmember Katz, I believe we're done with you for right now, right? At the request of the county executive, everyone, item number 34 will be deferred until May 17th. We're on to item 35, the NDA for the incubator programs. I will call on Chairman Reamer.
Thanks. Well, I was going to suggest we also postpone that to the future date. They're kind of birds of a feather with the MCEDC. So we can just take that all up that day. And just to be clear, the executive branch is reaching out because the new guidance about ARPA money, and they want to consider that recommendation a little further, which they had made, that we'd fund a big portion of the enhancements of MCEDC through that source. So we'll wait to hear from them, and I think we could take up the incubator at the same time.
Sounds very prudent. Okay, next is the NDA for the Montgomery Coalition for Adult English Literacy. Councilmember Rice, Chairman Rice.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. And I really want to thank Kathy Stevens, our Executive Director of McHale, and Ms. Lambert, who's here with our Office of Management and Budget, but especially Ms. Chen, who continues to help us to brainstorm about ways in which we can continue to focus on promotion of English literacy, understanding just how important that is. And we saw, based on the global pandemic and folks relying upon being connected via technology, that language acquisition certainly was a hindrance for many families all across this county. And really then to see McHale adapt and be able to continue to serve our residents who needed these vital services was just incredible. And so really want to thank my colleagues on the Education and Culture Committee for their continued support, as well as the county executive for continuing to understand and prioritize that English language acquisition is not just something that we need to say is nice, it's a necessity, and certainly something that across the board, whether it's economic development, workforce development opportunities, whether it's dealing with education or healthcare, you name it, it's all a part of folks being able to really get themselves into the community more and continue to understand all of the great things that Montgomery County has to offer, as well as the services that we provide should you need to avail yourself of them. So we supported the request for an increase of $100,000. We know that McHale receives a $150,000 increase in FY20, and we set a same services budget. And we know that McHale had reallocated some of the $25,000 from its operating budget to grants programs to help fund some new programs that are out there, again, continuing to adapt to the need that we saw in our community. And so with that, we had a unanimous 3-0 vote on the Education and Culture Committee, but let me turn it over to Ms. Chen in case I missed any salient points.
Thank you, Councilmember Rice. Just a point of clarification. The request from McHale in FY20 was for $150,000. We actually went with the same services budget in FY20, and then the county executive increased to $100,000 for FY22, and our ENC committee discussion was McHale's request for an additional $100,000, which we are going to defer to a joint ENC and Fed session on workforce development. So the recommendation before you is to approve the county executive budget as submitted with an additional $100,000 for McHale's operation.
And so that's what's before us, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Stevens, so great to see you. And Ms. Lambert, Council Member Novato.
Thank you so much. I wanted to again acknowledge the amazing work of Ms. Stevens leading this organization and growing this organization. That particular data point of about 42% of our residents speak a language other than English speaks to the fact that there are so many who still want to be able to reach that milestone. And, we had a very robust discussion on the committee regarding this notion of the role that adult ESOL plays in workforce development in our extraordinary robust conversations about economic development strategies and goals. And that it is, I think, time to also be able to take a step back and reassess the important role of McKell in also promoting many of those goals. Oftentimes, I think, for many years, many folks in the community wanted, to do whatever it took to provide ESOL for adults, understanding the important desire that so many of our immigrant community members have to, of course, come to the United States and continue to access opportunities. I think that at this point in time, especially once we get the census data, I think we will be, very surprised at the notion of how our communities have changed, how the county has changed, and why we need to place McKell in a particular elevated position so that we can have the kind of very high quality adult ESOL instruction, tying that directly into many of these other conversations. So one of the things we discussed in the committee was to come back, during the summer to really delve deep into this notion and see how we can then have, WorkSource Montgomery, Economic Development Corporation, talk, with the Montgomery College, et cetera, look at the ARPA funds as well, and see how we can strengthen this particular space. Because as Chairman Rice mentioned, especially as we are talking about post-COVID-19 recovery, looking at the disproportionate impact it has had on so many, especially in our immigrant community, this piece is very, very critical. And so I applaud McKell. They have started also to do amazing work with our childcare providers. It's so important. But I do believe that it's time for to reassess and strengthen and provide a lot more resources, aligning that with many of these other organizations and other efforts that we have prioritized in the county. So I look forward to that conversation in the summer or fall, however we organize all of this, and really want to thank our colleagues and Chairman Rice in particular as well for continuing to push this important issue forward. Thank you, Ms. Stevens, also to you.
Thank you. Council Vice President Albornoz.
Thanks. Councilor Novato said it perfectly and framed it perfectly. This is an economic development opportunity. And she often speaks very eloquently about us needing to focus more on our assets as a community, and to have so many of our residents speak so many different languages, especially in a global economy, is a tremendous asset, and one that we need to be more intentional in connecting. And so I completely associate myself with those comments that we need to, in addition to thinking about this as the committee did so effectively, and thank you, Chairman Rice, for your continued leadership and vision, and you as well, Councilmember Jawando, for your work on this through the committee work. But that's the next phase. That's the next iteration, is being more intentional about aligning these services and then connecting those residents who develop trust and come in through these nonprofit providers and then are connected to our system, and then connect them from there. We've had a record number of people testify before the council this year asking for interpretation. It's beautiful. It's amazing. And so there's a whole new generation of residents who are becoming engaged civically, and we need to build off of that. McKell is perfectly positioned to be our leader in that space. It's why they were built. So thank you, Ms. Stevens, my former seatmate on our trip to El Salvador together many years ago. Thank you for your continued leadership and that of your team, organizations, and volunteers. Your work is critical, especially now. So thanks so much.
Absolutely agree with all those comments. Thank you both so much for your hard work. I see no other requests to speak. All those in favor of the recommendation from the ENC committee for the NDA for McKell, please raise your hand. That is now unanimous. Great. Thank you all so much. We'll see you again soon.
We got one more, Mr.
I know.
Mr. President.
I
Oh,
wasn't
sorry.
adjourning.
Okay.
Thanks, bye,
Sorry.
Mr. Stevens.
That was for them. Councilman Rice, not you.
Trying to keep constituents happy, as you all have mentioned. Okay, CUP, Chairman Rice.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So our Office of Community Use and Public Facilities, obviously this is a very tumultuous topic because our public facilities for the most part have been closed. And so it creates tremendous challenges for both leadership at CUP as well as for those organizations or institutions that represent our public facilities, including Montgomery County Public Schools, as well as many of our recreation sites. And so really just want to tip my hat to Ms. Bell Pearson and the entire leadership of CUP. This has been an incredibly difficult time, and I know that their staff has been repurposed to help stand up many other endeavors throughout the county, including testing and other kinds of things. And so just really want to not only shout out the leadership in CUP, but also the individual staff members as well, who have continued to make sure that we're delivering services to those constituents that need it. This year, obviously, there's been a significant drop in terms of projected revenues. We're still not even sure about what that holds for the future. There's so much that's changing in the future for CUP because we know that as the county moves forward towards, we have laws in place that look at child care spaces. We have laws that are in place now that control what's happening in our school buildings and how that space should be allocated via the Kerwin recommendation. So, there's so much that's in flux right now that we are going to have to come back to. And I know that CUP is currently negotiating with MCPS on a new memorandum of understanding. There's so much that's there that the stability that the county executive has put forth is one that the committee recommended supporting at this point in time, understanding that we will need to come back to this later, whether it's in the summer or in early fall, especially to discuss the MOU that's going to be negotiated between CUP and MCPS and have just a better understanding. But did just want to shout out, today is the shout out day for Councilmember Navarro, but Councilmember Navarro and her great work when it came to ensuring that we had affordability, a component that was in law that allowed for nonprofits in our community to be able to utilize public spaces. All of those things are things that we will need to continue to look at and continue to stand up as we look towards the future, understanding that as we experienced what we saw with folks getting disconnected from so many services, those are things that folks are going to look for in ways to re-engage themselves with our communities. And so from that perspective, there's just a lot that's going on. And so we're going to have to definitely come back to this. So look for a more robust conversation, Mr. President, that will be happening in the Education and Culture Committee, either later on this summer or in the fall. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Yao. I want to thank her as always for being our great legislative analyst when it comes to the packet for any kind of things I may have missed.
I think that the only thing that I wanted to add to that was that we heard in the Education Committee that there are a number of reimbursements due to MCPS for fiscal year 21 as well as fiscal year 22. For fiscal year 21, it was approximately 2.6 million. And we did hear from MCPS that they have agreed to forgive that amount. For the fiscal year 22 amount, which is projected at 2.25 million, they're still holding off in terms of making a decision about that. So I did want to point that out, that was a significant point or issue.
So, Mr. President, you have a unanimous recommendation to approve the county executive's recommended budget from the Education and Culture Committee. I'll turn it back over to you to call on colleagues.
Thank you. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Chairman Rice and Councilmember Jawando also for another really important and robust conversation. Want to acknowledge Ms. Bell Pearson and also Ms. Vitale also for their incredible work throughout the years. Bill 1215 was the bill that established basically this opportunity, this program to provide some subsidies to organizations that were providing, important services to our needy, vulnerable residents. And to be honest, that conversation was pretty robust in the sense that we all recognized that we have limited public facilities while we have a growing sort of number of policy areas that we are trying to address. And since then, I feel that, that has only become even more of a point of interest, and it has grown in terms of the need. Undoubtedly, because of the pandemic, we're going to, of course, have to think through this. When we had the conversation about the libraries, opening libraries, we recognize that libraries play a very important role. And so I just wanted to flag that to my colleagues. We are going to come back to this. But I feel very strongly that we need to think about shifting the paradigm of how we're utilizing our public facilities and take, this bill, which I was a lot more ambitious bill than what was passed, but take this approach to a next level. I think at some point we need to get serious about what is the role that our public facilities play in how we respond to the needs of our constituents. I will also connect the dot of what our service delivery hubs have done. And it's been awesome because they're geographically located. So I am sure that we're going to have quite a bit of demand, especially coming out of the pandemic, for our public facilities. And it seems to me that this arrangement not quite going to be able to serve that need and respond to that need. So we may have to think outside the box. And I invite all my colleagues to begin to think through what this can look like so we can best leverage those important assets that are our public facilities. And if you look at the packet under the racial equity and social justice analysis, this bill is cited by CUF as providing also very important support to our Black and Brown communities and low-income communities, really addressing the issue of equity. So we already know what the data says, and therefore I think that we need to be thinking in a much more holistic way how we provide access to those public facilities, to those organizations, those programs that are serving our communities, so that our communities don't have to travel long distances, but that they're right there embedded in the community itself. So I appreciate the opportunity to just mention that, because I think it is one more area that we will be addressing hopefully in summer, fall. And I welcome all of your input on this very important issue. Thank you so much also to MCPS and everybody that has worked on all of this for quite a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We have a committee recommendation, unanimous one. Thank you, Ms. Yao, Ms. Vitale. Great to see you, Ms. Hyatt, Ms. Bell Pearson. Thank you for being here. We have committee recommendation on the table. Please raise your hand to support it. All right, that is unanimous. Colleagues, I think we can adjourn. Good work, get a lot of work done. We're moving expeditiously through this historic budget, our first on Zoom, and we will, well, maybe not the first, and we'll adjourn until 3 o'clock. Everybody knows. Okay, great. Thank you all.
Document.